Alright, so in this video we're going to learn CoffeeScript, and I may have another video for it so that we can go more in depth. I haven't decided yet, but you will learn 90% of CoffeeScript. Now first of all, what is CoffeeScript? It's small and it's similar to Haml and Sass, and it's the last one in the default packages used on Rails. It's very popular and second to none, with TypeScript being in a close second. It's a compiler that takes JavaScript code, fixes some of the heavy problems that we have with JavaScript writing techniques, and makes it feel like you're writing in Ruby in JavaScript. So, a quick crash course. You will almost never use a semicolon, and both Haml and CoffeeScript are double spaced, so 1-2 spaces. So small yay there because the scourge of JavaScript is gone. Now assignments follow like this: x equals 9 or x equals random string. That's how assignment works. Oh, and like Haml, everything that you nest needs to be 2-space indented. Comments, on the other hand, with a single hashtag, and blocks are with a triple hashtag. One triple hashtag at the top and one triple hashtag at the bottom. If statements might be a little confusing though. But let's go ahead and talk about the anonymous function for JavaScript. In JavaScript, we have var x equals function, the parameters, and then we return something inside the brackets. That's how an anonymous function works, and you can use it like a normal function, really. You just use like function x and pass something through the parameters. But anonymous functions have special purposes. The first part is that they are amazingly fast and allow for much smaller files. Also, it allows for the access to the actual parent scope, and you can read it easier than you can a defined function for the most part, provided that you aren't making a giant anonymous function. The second part is the bad stuff. Like, it's harder to read and easy to get lost if you're nesting your functions like crazy. However, anonymous functions are how CoffeeScript works. With that in mind, let's head into the if statement. X equals 8 if x is greater than 1. This looks very broken down and easy to read, and it translates to if x is greater than 1, then x equals 8. That's what an if statement looks like in CoffeeScript, and functions aren't that much more different. We use an arrow though if we want to return something. Now, if you're not wanting to return something and you're just wanting to do something, you do what you want to do, and then after that you put in an empty return. You just type in return. Alright, so random equals params arrow params is var random equals function params return params. Now we also have objects which look very much the same to the actual way you would write out objects. It's just missing brackets and the need for strings around the properties. So person equals height as 20, width as 30, name as Charles, and strings are still inside of quotations. And you're done. Now that's an object in CoffeeScript. Really simple. Now we should move on to loops, which are kind of awesome, and I'm not going to lie. They make very, very good sense and are a ton easier to read than normal for loops inside of JavaScript. So let's go ahead and set up our humans array, and I have some functions here that simply output the result. Now this is not much different, and now we can get into the for loop. Now I'll explain it first, and then I'll show you it. So the function is what you want, along with its parameters, what it's for, inside of what, and then the condition for it to happen. So I have create pet for human in humans when the human is undefined or null. Now let me show you what that sentence just provided in the written code. As you can see, it is a standard loop, and it makes sure that there's a stop method. Automatically indexes the human, and if the human is not undefined and not null, it creates a pet. All of that code, which would have taken much more time, is now shortened and more readable than the real code. Alright, so now that we know that, we're going to do a more advanced program. In order to understand why hoisting is valuable, you need to know how the compiler works. When you send the code to the compiler, it runs once to find all the variable and functions and stops to record at where it's at, and then it moves on until it finds all. JavaScript already hoists your program when it compiles, which is to say that it puts all the variable definition names at the top of the current scope and then fills in the definitions as those functions or those variables are needed. Therefore, if you provide the hoisting for the browser, then your code works much faster. So let's see the hoisted JavaScript function and then see how it's done in CoffeeScript. So we have hello equals size, weight equals 20, a return arrow, and then console.log size times weight, and then we'll just throw in a 29 there. Alright, so when we look at the compiled code, we say our hello way down here. Additionally, you see that CoffeeScript handed us an if statement so that if nothing is put into weight, we have a default value. However, if you look at the top of this immediate function, we have literally everything already hoisted. This means JavaScript only has to fill in descriptions now. Additionally, you probably noticed I said immediate function, and that is because CoffeeScript puts everything into an immediate function so that it automatically runs. There are several benefits to having this, primarily having it faster than it would normally be. Now, of course, there's some stuff in here that will look a lot like ECMA 6, and that's because CoffeeScript and TypeScript were the go-to JavaScript languages before ECMAScript. Therefore, ECMAScript 6 implemented the better stuff of these two languages. However, CoffeeScript is still very much useful, as you can see from its readability and its certain aspects of making sure that code is properly formed. Now, you can have a range in CoffeeScript, and if you haven't gone through the Ruby section, then you wouldn't know what a range is. A range is represented by two dots between two numbers in an array, and a range will make the numbers from one point to another, and in this case it'll make 1 to 25. So even though I didn't type out 1 to 25, the program is designed to type out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all the way up to 25. Now it will look a little different than what you would expect in the compiled code, because for the lulz is actually a function. If you're wondering why it's like this when you don't see this in Ruby, it's because Ruby hid it. If you look at the method for making Ruby ranges, you will find that this function is what makes them. There's also the null and undefined or false values. It's annoying to write out, and if you're ever doing any type of falsy challenge or you have already done the falsy challenge, you come to understand this very well. So we have name equals Tommy, and then console.log my name is name if for the lols is null or undefined. Now you see a question mark. That question mark at the end translates to a check for falsy values. Additionally, we've used the Ruby way of string interpolation, which is something we can use in CoffeeScript. It takes whatever we have as a variable and puts it inside of the string. You can also do mathematics inside of those brackets, and all current JavaScript functions work inside of CoffeeScript. You just have to be mindful of the parameters, brackets, and semicolons. Boolean values. They provide us with more than two options in CoffeeScript, primarily because of making it sound grammatically correct. Therefore, true has yes, on, or true, and false has no, off, or false. Another feature in CoffeeScript is splat, and this is an extended argument. This is represented by 3 dots. What splat does is it allows you to take in all the arguments given inside of a single parameter, and then you can reference that single parameter to use the information inside of it. Now this is useful for several reasons. Number one, in case you have a function that you don't know how many parameters are going to be sent in, such as what happens whenever you need to create more than one type of document. What happens whenever you need to make more than one file? You can't just loop through without the names. You have to take them as a parameter. And since you don't know how many names there are going to be, you need something like splat in order to handle that. Now, if you want to know more about how splat works, I suggest that you check out the ECMA 5 script section to handling the arguments array. And the arguments array is a rather advanced topic, and normally in most situations you wouldn't normally need to use splat, but splat is one of those advanced features that can be used in Ruby, and it can also be used inside of CoffeeScript.